Once upon a time when I was a little kid, I was checking out this school display about foods from around the world. I was looking at the bit about coffee and decided in my 9-year-old fucking wisdom to sniff a coffee bean to get a better sense of its aroma. I sniffed that little bastard bean straight up my nostril. Over the next few minutes, I experienced a whole range of emotions: fear, terror, panic, and desperation, all whilst trying to get the damn bean out of my nasal canal. I felt too embarrassed to tell a teacher, so I kept desperately trying to dig it out of my nose before anyone saw what I'd done. Eventually, escalating to the point where I was trying to pry the thing out with a pencil, which only served to push it and the pencil tip further up towards my brain. In a flash, the obvious solution came to me. I calmed myself and just did a snot rocket, firing the coffee bean like a little brown bullet out onto the floor. I wiped it off, put it back into the pile on display like a special limited edition schoolboy Kopi Luwak coffee, and congratulated myself on my ingenuity. A tidal wave of relief, pride and post-adrenaline hysterics washed over me. I am telling you this story because getting a coffee bean stuck up my fucking nose was a more exciting, exhilarating, and frankly less unpleasant and less expensive experience than playing the latest Far Cry spin-off. Welcome to Far Cry New Dawn, a game that is less rewarding than getting a coffee bean stuck up your nose. I would love to be able to say I completed this game before reviewing it, but it was too horrible and a waste of life. Besides, you could read half of The Bad Boy in Cuffs and have a pretty good grasp of what this cheap erotic novel is all about. There is absolutely no fucking danger that in the last chapter it's suddenly going to burst into a fucking treatise about resolving geopolitical tensions in third world economies. Just like The Bad Boy in Cuffs, Far Cry New Yawn is shit at the beginning, shit in the middle, so please don't call me lazy for wasting another moment of my life proving it's still shit at the end. Not that it matters if the end is good anyways, because it's a journey that is frankly not worth taking, regardless of how good the destination is. This said, if you are enjoying the game, please, I do not want anything I say to devalue your opinion, detract from your enjoyment, or be misrepresented or misconstrued as being disrespectful towards you in any way whatsoever. Even though you clearly must be totally fucking mental.
Mid pleasures and palaces, though I may roam.
Let's talk gameplay. I think like many people at this juncture, I'm suffering from Far Cry fatigue syndrome. Ubisoft is just shitting out bad Far Cry asset flips on an almost hourly basis these days. It doesn't matter how slick or well done they are, rebranded Monopoly is still fucking Monopoly. You know, it's Far Cry. You shoot, you drive, you loot, rinse and repeat. It's a Far Cry game. Just play the first half of Far Cry 3 and not only will you now have experienced the core essence of every Far Cry game, but the best days of your Far Cry career will now already be behind you. Far Cry New Dawn is a giant Skinner box of busy work, where you feel like a rat in a maze, in a lab, being constantly encouraged to run around and loot random crap you don't pay any attention to, for upgrades you don't really care about, for reasons about which you have no fucks to give. The entire purpose of the game is to keep you running around the maze, chasing that bit of cheese, in the hope that at some point you either get so frustrated or simply confused that you end up eating a bit of cheese that costs you real money in the in-game store. Because every fucking vendor is a pedo vendor. That's right, every single place where you get stuff in-game also happens to serve as a conveniently positioned in-game store. In fact, Far Cry New Dawn is best described as an always online, live service microtransaction store where Ubisoft kindly decided to give us a couple of quests to do between purchases. How jolly considerate of them. The companions are unsurprisingly as shit and forgettable as everything else dashed into this game at the last minute. My annoying hipster GF was a complete frackled freak show. She just rambled on incoherently about shit that was too dull to remember, occasionally interrupting herself with random or mistimed shrieking. She would also periodically make reaction screeches, squeaks and shouts, but they would be totally out of sync with the action. I'd kill some bad guys, then 30 seconds later she would lose her shit accordingly, with battle dialogue like she was stuck in a time slip. There was one point in an escort driving mission where every time they yelled out a direction, it was the opposite direction, because the dialogue was lagging about 10 seconds behind the action. The companion's ability to drive vehicles for you when you're a passenger, effectively being your chauffeur, is one of the few unintended highlights of the game. Thanks to the rather clunky and unfinished route planning mechanism, combined with the spectacularly unimpressive companion artificial intelligence, the companion taxi driver function, pun absolutely intended, resulted in some quite excellent accidental entertainment. Your companion will insist on driving directly at anything that might explode, running over non-hostile NPCs and fucking you face first into every convenient ditch and crevasse within range. It's like someone hacked one of those self-driving cars and replaced its AI and safety protocols with just the following lines of code. Murder, murder, murder. Kill, kill, kill. Imagine if someone programmed a sat-nav to always pick routes that went at high speed through the middle of children's playgrounds or drive along pavements outside junior schools. And that was the most fun you were going to have all day. All journeys usually end in some kind of bloodbath. And that right there was the most fun I found in the game. What the? Oh, and whilst we're on the subject, you can't punch the children in the game. There's nothing profound about that statement. I just wanted to punch the children, really. Because it's fun. So what about the weaponry? The quality, balancing and realism of the weapons are of the usual level of professionalism and quality that we're coming to expect from Ubisoft. So yes, they are absolutely fucking dreadful. As veteran Ubisoft customers will correctly assume, some of the skins look nice, some of the sound effects are nice, but everything else to do with the guns can basically be placed somewhere on a scale between shit and sorcery. Because this is a full-blown pay-to-win shitfest, it goes without saying that the guns you get with the upgraded version of the game, or just buy for money in-game, are suitably overpowered at the start and are working precisely as intended. But that is the point here. Get your wallet out, go and win. Ubisoft has entirely, predictably, continued its creepy obsession with shoehorning Nazi guns in at every opportunity. I saw MP40s, MP34s, but apparently there are Lugers and more besides. Look, this whole thing about Ubisoft being obsessed with Nazi memorabilia started out as a cheap running gag, but it's getting weird now. I'm actually being serious. Ubisoft's reputation for compulsory Nazi memorabilia fetishism is starting to get picked up on by other people in the wider gaming community. Because it's weird, and because it's true. And I'm an authority on weird, so I can confirm it's very, very weird indeed. Sure, I think it's funny, but do you really want me as your role model? Didn't think so, Ubisoft. So how does the game perform performance-wise? It's a Far Cry game, so as usual, the computational requirements are so low you could probably run it on a fucking shoe. I would go as far as to say that the homicidal AI, Ubisoft's Nazi memorabilia fetish, and the performance on PC were the selling points of the game. I think they missed a trick by not putting this on the advertising material. Will run on a shoe. And maybe free Nazi memorabilia. The irony is, of course, that this game is designed like a mobile game, and it probably could run, if not on a shoe, possibly a mobile. I'm sure they floated the idea of making a mobile version. I had no issues running it on high settings on even an average graphics card. Although it did stagger a little when my homicidal taxi driver was at the wheel. So yeah, maybe there's something up with the AI scripts. Just saying. The options were very extensive and you can pretty much change everything. The options are both comprehensive and detailed. The field of view slider is a lifesaver. I spend enough of my time peeping through little holes in walls. I don't want to feel like I'm doing it when I'm playing a shooter. Widening the field of view spared me a lot of brain ache. The game also has a stream setting, which when activated disables all copyrighted music in the game, so you won't get copyright claimed on Twitch or YouTube. The cynic in me appreciates that this was certainly an entirely selfish move by Ubisoft, who practically demand that their entirely managed content creating underlings stream their new titles as part of their promotion campaigns, whilst spouting shit about the game being awesome and super exciting. Nevertheless, this option is a fucking excellent innovation and should be mandatory in modern video games. However, as much as I like this option, it is still a poor and sorry alternative to just paying the bloody artists for the copyright, so people don't get strikes because someone cheaped out on paying the musicians. If you can't afford it, use different music. There it is. Oh, and the mission completion mechanics were a tiny little bit fucked. On several occasions I failed missions because I parked my pay-to-win pickup too far away, quickly dashed over to drive it closer, and got told I failed the mission for leaving the mission area. They didn't think that one through very well. I guess technically this means that this is the first Far Cry game where you can fail a mission for a minor parking violation. We need to talk about the pink. Jesus fuck, there is way too much pink. It's the pinkest game in video game history, knocking Hello Kitty and Pony World 3 off the top spots. Welcome to Far Cry New Dawn. It's pink. And a little bit boring. In fact, it's the pinkest game ever that I could describe as dull. Perhaps the pink is some psychometric experiment where monetizers discovered that people are more likely to trust and spend money if they see lots of the colour pink in their field of view. Scary. I actually googled that, and apparently pink does have a calming effect on people. Fuck, a pink colour scheme and psychometrics. What a mindfuck combo. Why don't they just hire hypnotists to sell us microtransactions and be fucking done with it? Or drug us. You can bet they're thinking about it. I bet they did a study where they found out that coming down off the caffeine hit from Mountain Dew energy drink makes you more likely to buy pay-to-win goods and services. At this point, I don't even know where the joke ends and the nightmare begins. Part of the pinkness must surely be them trying to stylistically mimic Rage 2 and in some strange subliminal way cash in on its marketing. I also suspect that they're just trying to be annoying and troll us, so that when people complain, some blue-haired hipsters can call us crying man babies. An FPS adventure game where everything is pink? That's not a fucking accident. It reminded me of those wanker progressive parents that keep insisting that they raise their kids trans, dressing up little Billy in a frock even though he just wants a fucking air gun for Christmas so he can shoot the neighbour's pets. In fact, the forced pinkness of the entire art design made me feel a bit like little Billy. I felt like Ubisoft was forcing me to dress up in a little pink frock as some kind of joke at my expense, when all I wanted to do was kill the neighbour's pets. This being said, if you think wearing a little pink frock is the weirdest thing I do in the privacy of my own home, you clearly don't have the measure of me. The helter-skelter advertising was clearly designed to provoke a shitstorm where there was none. I reckon this was a contrived PR stunt to deflect from the Ubisoft dev getting flack for saying politics doesn't mix with video games, when all the SJWs started hating on Ubisoft for selling out their political agenda. Considering how many marketing people sit in a room poring all over this shit before they release the final promotional material, I think it's safe to say that they did not miss the imagery in the main promotional picture. Two young black women torturing a white dude crucified on a car? Yeah, I reckon experts in marketing and communication strategy would have noted the possible messages in that. Yeah, doubt they missed that fucker really. Here is my personal theory. In order to deflect criticism for the previous SJW backlash, conjure up some free publicity and trigger some outrage for a situation they worked out well in advance they could completely defend, they decided on this picture. I reckon they thought it would be a hilarious stunt. Two sexually attractive young black women wearing pink and blue, torturing a half-naked white dude in a field of pink flowers with a nice, clearly visible, loathing sneer. I think they were desperately hoping people would get the wrong end of the stick and think this was some kind of lesbian helter-skelter race war theme, and the gaming community would erupt in outrage, grab their alt-right pitchforks, wrongly accusing Ubisoft of pursuing some kind of social justice, LGBT, FMJ, woke, torture, porn, kill whitey agenda. But nobody really gave a fuck, did they? I'm sure the marketeers and PR minions at Ubisoft were gutted when nobody took the bait. Sure, there were a few murmurings on Reddit, but no backlash. There was no great triggering. People just took a look at the game, saw the rest of the NPCs were a fairly average racial mix and realised the image was trolling them, and went back and had a sandwich and watched some porn instead. Nice try, Ubisoft. But I guess gamers are smarter than you realise. As usual. Still, just couldn't help get the feeling that this was a bit of a dangerous game they're playing. So what about the story and the full depth and scope of the narrative structure? Perhaps narrative structure is a bit strong, and using the word depth is a bit of a reach. If I'm totally honest, it's kind of a bit of an exaggeration to use the word story. In fact, the words "so what" are probably the only part of that introduction I can use. The story is basically this. You are the player, you do some stuff, and then you set off into the American countryside with the intention of murdering a couple of black girls. It's a bit like being in the Ku Klux Klan in the 1930s, only for once, you're actually the good guy. Everything is brightly coloured, like the playpen in a kid's store. You loot lots of stuff and get very bored. The most exciting part of the plot is when it suddenly occurs to you that you spent £40 for the privilege to be this unentertained. And that regret stabs you in the chest like a red hot poker. Man, this game is fucked up when you really analyse it in detail. So let's talk weaponry. The guns are nice to shoot, but a bit Harry Potter. The guns initially seemed quite reasonable in the common sense department, but then you notice that if you go up tiers, the damage shoots up. There are situations where high tier 9mm subguns are more powerful than rifles. Look, the barrel length and calibre are the biggest single factor in power. Nicer guns tend to be more accurate, reliable and handle better. They don't shoot magical death bullets powerful enough to smite a demigod. They felt nice enough though. Shame that one of the best guns in the game was the pay-to-win saw light machine gun, because that meant that wallet warriors like me face planted into the game instantly with an OP gun right from the start. I'd say Far Cry is still perpetuating that myth that silencers / suppressors reduce bullet velocity. Well, actually, no. Snipers using suppressors often have to compensate for the bullet travelling further. The gun is only less powerful if you use deliberately weak loads on the ammo to make the bullet subsonic.
But, as for the whole suppressors slow down your velocity? Not at all. If anything, they increase it.
The creepy and out of place Nazi weaponry is on steroids as usual. MP40s, MP34 Bergmans. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised if they had a Waffen SS cosmetic outfit in the pedo vendors and a fucking panzer tank in the garage. Just stop it, Ubisoft. Halt with your Nazi guns. Monetization. This is the most important thing about this game, because this is precisely what this game is all about. The game was built as a platform for monetization. It wasn't an afterthought. The game was reverse engineered around microtransactions. The monetization in this game is worthy of its own discussion because it's definitely a frightening insight into Ubisoft's vision of always online, games as a service future. Everything in the game is seamlessly meshed into the fabric of in-game purchasing. Every fucking vendor is a pedo vendor. There is no clear distinction between what is earned in-game and what you can buy on the go. At one point, I didn't have enough perk points for something, and I noticed one of the options was to buy fucking perk points with fucking real money. As I've said before, this game is all about getting the player to constantly run around a maze, chasing a bit of cheese as a reward. The end game here is that the player will either get so frustrated they spend money or get psychologically worn down and just spend cash because the option becomes normalised. In fact, maybe that's also part of the point. Ubisoft wants its customers to stop making a mental distinction between in-game loot and real financial transactions. It wants to erode that discrimination in our heads. It wants us to learn that it's not a choice between playing a game and spending real cash. They want us to forget reality and just start thinking about convenience and how much we want convenience. Frustrate the player so they start to balance money versus convenience. They want to replace the either or choice with a grayscale slider of convenience where we decide how much extra money we spend in game to grease the wheels of progress. The end goal here is obviously that they are psychologically manipulating us into becoming the consumer equivalent of mind-controlled zombies, parting with our cash every time we can't be fucked to loot 50 more containers for that scrap. These mechanics are horrible. It's a not so subtle form of cognitive behavioural manipulation. If you use these tactics in a drug trial or at a hospital bedside when recommending treatment, you would be convicted of malpractice. It's using psychological manipulation and mental fatigue to secure an exploitative outcome. It's the consumer equivalent of forcing a girl to keep doing vodka shots whilst constantly trying to grope her tits. It's the video game equivalent of someone trying to get a girl so drunk at a party that she can't put up a fight when they try and fuck her in a deserted part of the house. The sales psychology of Far Cry New Dawn is horrible, manipulative, and should be legislated. This is the kind of mobile game bullshit you get when you have 3 times as many psychologists and monetizing specialists than you have developers working on a game. The only saving grace of Far Cry New Dawn is that they invested so much time on the monetization and so little into the game that the game turned out shit, effectively saving many players from spending, because it's basically such a bad game. This game is a cheap-assed asset flip of an already tired, cliched and overused formula. It's boring and overpriced, and Ubisoft should be ashamed. The game only exists to service the interests of the shareholder. Its entire purpose is to trick whales into spending money and to psychologically groom proto-whales. It's all about pedo-grooming customers so they're more receptive to microtransactions. It's not entirely without merit. It has a few good points. Ubisoft's continued inclusion of Nazi memorabilia gave me something to take the piss out of. The jihadi NPC driving AI was hilarious, and I really enjoyed the domestic abuse minigame.
My dad. We weren't their only victims.
This game will be very appealing to people like astronauts on solo deep space missions or prisoners serving life in solitary confinement, as long as they have never played a Far Cry game before, do not own a credit card so they're immune from the microtransactional fuckery, and they have such low standards in narrative structure and storycraft that they think those shitty fake stories in the back of porno mags constitute some kind of genuine literary accomplishment. Oh, and those stories in the back of porno mags are fake, by the way. They're written by the office staff. I mean, how many people do you think actually write stories every week and send them to busty girls on the farm? Seriously, I'm the only person I know who does that. This game is bad. It's an online shop, strapped onto a cheap-ass asset flip of a game, and a literally perfect example of Ubisoft's always online future, and precisely the reason we're going to see Ubisoft up there in the headlines with Activision, Bethesda, Fuckshit Softworks and EA within the next 12 months. This product is manipulative, cheap and unworthy of Ubisoft, and certainly less than the loyal Ubisoft customers deserve. I personally don't have children because they're annoying and they shit themselves, but if I did, by chance, kidnap someone else's children and they were knocking around the house, playing with matches or whatever the fuck kids do, out of a profound sense of responsibility, I would not let them anywhere near this game. Far Cry New Dawn is a brain training tool for facilitating bad purchasing choices. Bin it. It's fucking evil. Well, I think that was a very reasonable and well balanced review. But for now, good luck and happy hunting.